Hi everyone and welcome back to Roll for Damage. Again, I have with us Wystle to tell us a story.
Hiya, I'm back.
Now, this story is not quite like the last one, it's a bit happier. What's it about?
Happier is a relative term, but it's not a bad experience. It's a creepy NPC that is currently following my druid Arrow around in my Tomb of Annihilation game.
You have an NPC stalker?
Yes, that's exactly what he is. He just shows up at these random times and he's ridiculous. I love him because he's so creepy, but also I don't trust him at all.
Okay, how does this story go?
So it starts in session 2 when I triggered his encounter. So basically, before I get into how I met him, I should describe what he looks like and why he's so creepy. So he is a very tall, lanky man with very sharp features, like very sharp cheekbones, and just a really unnervingly wide smile and black eyes with white pupils. He is always fidgeting, like he's always like grasping at his tie or like fidgeting with his hands, and he speaks in like almost a broken stutter, but it's not quite a stutter. It's very unnerving. He's like a mix of Alistair from Hazbin Hotel and Freaky Fred from Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Okay.
So, okay, where this starts is that my character, Arrow, was originally a follower of Bane, the Black Hand. If you don't know the Feyren pantheon, Bane is basically the god of hatred and tyranny, and in our world, he had a very large cult in Arrow's home country city. It's called, let me redo that. He had a very large cult following in the city of Mist, located in the Fields of Sorrow, which is a war-torn land between the Holy Isles and, I think, Heiligard is the other country on the other side. It's kind of just a very godforsaken place, mostly full of tieflings and people who can't live anywhere else. Very sad. Not a fun place.
Sounds like a charming place.
Yeah.
Does that mean that your character wasn't exactly on the up and up to begin with?
She was born into a cult as an Aasimar. So she was born high in the church because of her Aasimar blood. So she had a better run at life than most people in Sorrow, but that doesn't mean she had a happy life.
Okay.
She was running away from a I can't really say it's a broken marriage. She didn't want to be in the church anymore and feared her husband's retribution. So she ran away, left her kid. Not that she wanted to, but she left her kid, and she spent a long 5 years in the forests. And that's how she became a druid. She kind of found solace in this isolation where she was free to think and process everything she's been through. And she was able to kind of find herself without being like her thoughts being controlled. There's a lot about how she became disenchanted by the church, but that's a story for a different time.
Okay.
The bottom line is that she was looking for something else to follow. Despite being a druid and, nature being the primary theme, she's also an Aasimar, a being that is inherently celestial. So she didn't know what to follow, and she was a fallen Aasimar by this point, and she'd always assumed it was because she had served Bane. That may not be the case anymore. We're not really sure yet. This story, unfortunately, does not have a resolution because the campaign is still going. So we'll start with when we arrived in Port Nine Zara, which is the main port city in Tomb of Annihilation. We were heading towards the Merchant Prince Wakanga place with Syndra Sylvain, and we passed by a temple to Mystar, the Mother of the Weave. my character's plot hook for going to Chult was that I had a dream, a strange dream of a beautiful golden light and a voice telling me to seek out the one called Sindra Sylvain. And when we passed by this temple to Mystar, I saw the same light shining from inside the temple. So I let the party go off doing the talking, because at this point I was, I'm kind of a recluse and I don't like talking to people. I kind of let the character I came into the campaign with, Tea Leaf, do most of the talking. So I excused myself to go check out this temple, and as I was leaving the temple, I had like a talk with the priest who was trying to hustle me out of gold to cast a divination spell on me, and I didn't have enough. So, as I was leaving, this creepy dude is standing in the middle of the road. People are moving carts all around him, and he's just standing there. And it seems like nobody else is paying him any mind, but my eyes immediately drawn to him. I kind of just stare, and then he turns, and he calls me a name that only people in sorrow would have known me as. Arrow's original name was Alma Amber Moon, but she's taken the name Arrow to kind of get away from that. And so he calls her Miss Alma, and she's immediately like, oh fuck, he was sent by the church. He's gonna like drag me back. I don't want to go back. So she's immediately on guard. And the thing about him is that he never really says much of substance. He just kind of does a lot. He every question you ask him, he gives a roundabout answer that leads you right back to the same question.
Oh, fun times. Okay, speaks in riddles.
Yeah, and he's very unnerving, more with like how he speaks and the fact like by the end of our conversation, I knew nothing about him. And he's like choking himself with his tie or acting like it's too tight or too loose, and he's like fidgeting and freaking the hell out. Nobody around me is noticing this, which is even more like creepy to me because like he's so out of place. Port Nyanzaru is an extremely colorful town, and he's standing here in like these very stiffly well-tailored clothes, like acting so strange, and nobody's batting an eye. So I head back. And I'm a little scared, and I'm like, okay, so when are we going into the jungle? Because I don't want to stay here anymore. I tell Tea Leaf what had happened. He's an important character in the story. Tea Leaf is our rogue ranger who came into the campaign with Arrow. We had about 1.5 years of history together, and Tea Leaf is like the closest thing to a best friend Arrow has.
Okay.
They met in a port when Arrow was selling herbs, and just kind of stuck together. Just happened. So the next meeting with Mystar was when we were a couple nights into the forest by this point. I have a raven familiar. I think this got released in Tasha's, but something that's been in UA for a while is getting to swap out, is getting to basically cast Find Familiar with your wild shape ability. Mm-hmm. So I had a familiar named Edgar that I would have scout around, and I always had him particularly looking for this creepy dude because Edgar. I was convinced that he was sent after me, right?
You named your raven or crow Edgar?
Yeah.
Not Poe or Alan.
Yes, actually, when she was a warlock and had flock of familiars, her three familiars were named Edgar, Allen, and Poe.
Okay. Can I? If there's any people in the comments, just everyone go at it for that one, please. Everyone.
So, Edgar never saw anything. So that kind of led me to think, okay, I'm safe for now. It's fine. Arrow doesn't like sleeping on the forest floor. She sleeps up in trees. Mm-hmm. So she was up in a tree sleeping, and she wakes up, and this creepy fucker is just sitting on the branch right next to her, staring at her. Just there. He looks very uncomfortable to be so high up, but he's just staring at her. And, you know, of course, I don't react the best. I'm pretty sure I cast Chill Touch at him at the time. I was a Spore Druid at the time. This was before I changed circles. I'm pretty sure I cast Chill Touch at him, and it didn't do anything, but he had, like, this look of, intense hurt on his face, like I had emotionally damaged him.
That's a bit rude. He was just standing there and you attacked him.
He was watching me while I sleep. That's not nice.
He was just looking out for you.
Everybody seems to think that he's not scary.
He sounds horrible. Like, a little bit creepy. If your DM's done a good job to make him, make you creeped out, then yeah.
Yeah.
Creepy.
Yeah, no, it's just so fucking creepy. Something to establish quickly is that there is a plague in this world called the Plague of Taint. It is basically a miasma of corrupted magic that is permeating throughout the world. And it's very important to remember because that plague is a really big problem in Sorrow, where I'm from. So, Mystar didn't show up again for weeks after that. Thankfully, he didn't show up again for weeks after that. Then the next time he showed up, he was just kind of watching us. It was like we had just done, I think it was the Firefinger dungeon in Tomb, and he just kind of showed up. Like, I could see him standing very far away through the trees. And I excused myself to try and, talk to him, because I'm like, why the hell are you out here? The weird thing about him is that he never looked like he'd been trekking through the jungle. He always looked pristine. And he never left trails behind, either. No footprints, no climbing marks on trees, no magic indication of any kind. He was just fucking weird. So I go to talk to him again, and I basically tell him, all right, either you're not, you say you're not with my husband, but, I don't believe you. And if you're not, you've got to just be something in my head from this jungle because you're not leaving any trace behind. And he's like, oh dear, I'm very real. Puts his hand on a tree and leaves behind a handprint of this plague, of this tainted substance.
Okay.
And I freaked the fuck out.
That's problematic. Keep going.
Yeah. So I freak out at this because all I know about this plague is that it corrupts and kills whatever it touches. So I'm freaking out. A bunch of Chwinga show up and they start healing the tree. It was a very cute moment. Not before I have a proper freak out. And run the hell away and try to get the party, being like, see, I'm not crazy. He's there. He did this. This was him. Because at that point, the party kind of thought I was just seeing things. They didn't think he was real. Especially because my DM always pulled me into our Whispers channel. So they never even heard him. It just happened. So we didn't have another Mystar encounter until the Dinosaur race back in Port Nyanzaru after we had some fun escapades with the Lich Valenendra Shadowmantle. That's a different story. We didn't think we were going to survive at this point, so when we got a teleportation scroll, we went back to port. We were running out of the insect repellent, which, would mean we'd be open to a lot of diseases. Mm-hmm. And we were going to take our guide back and hire another one because Azaka had done what we'd hired her for. So we go through the dinosaur race, we win a crap ton of money, and then we're just we get some free time, right? And this leads up to one of my videos where I told stories of my time in Chult. And this is what happened directly before we helped deliver a baby and inadvertently created a divine soul sorcerer.
Okay.
An Aasimar and a cleric help a woman give birth, and that's what happened.
Huh.
So, I was on my way to go see Beck and Zal, our cleric and our barbarian, because they had gone through the poorest district of Port Nyanzaru, because Beck's a sweet, sweet, sweet boy and wanted to offer aid to those people because they're kind of being fed to dinosaurs. It's not a fun ride for them.
Why are they getting fed to dinosaurs?
Because the merchant princes are douchebags,
Okay.
and they're poor.
So the standard practice is feed poor people to dinosaurs in Chult. Okay.
I mean, yeah, like there's a thing called the Executioner's Run, which is like if you were caught stealing, you were thrown into a pit with a bunch of dinosaurs for them to eat you. Pretty fucked up.
When you said it's the Executioner's Run, I was like, oh, so it's like a race, and if they win, they don't die. You're like, nope, just a pit with dinosaurs.
No, if they're able to climb out of the pit, they win their freedom. It's kind of like in when we had the fighting pits in Scales Above, where they have like the last fight of the day is a criminal bound for death.
Okay, yep. Okay.
Kind of like that, fight for your freedom.
Yep.
So, well, I was on my way to the Beggar's Palace, as this place is called, and Mystar is standing there in the center of the archway that heads into the Beggar's Palace. People are walking around it, but no one's paying him any mind. And he's like, oh, congratulations on winning the dinosaur race. And at this point, I'm like, what? What the fuck are you, man? You've shown up so many times now, have given me no answers. And he's like, oh, all will be answered in due time. And fucking leaves. And I'm like, dude, I'm scared of him, but I'm also, at this point, my curiosity has been piqued. I'm like, what are you, and why are you harassing me?
Does he, like, teleport, disappear, or does he just walk away and you don't follow?
It's like he walks off. It's like one of those things where he walks away, and, like, a group will pass in front of me, and then he's gone.
Batman's his way out of there. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. So, the next Mystar encounter, I think, was the most severe one. Because it was the one where I got a little crazy, and he got a little crazy, and I finally understood just who the fuck he was. So, keep in mind, throughout this entire point, I've been trying to follow Mystra because I firmly believe that that light I saw in her temple was her guiding, right? Yeah. Her being like, come here, child.
I'm super keen to hear how this ends, like who this guy is. Tell me.
Okay, so we had just dealt with another dungeon. I believe it was the Mimbala dungeon with the hag that's eaten pretty much this entire settlement. And I am getting desperate at this point. I had already gotten a sending message from my crazy ex-husband that he was going to find me during the Blood Moon, which really fucking scary event we've been having, and you've had this happen in your world. I had basically been leading him on because I believed that he was in Chult with our 10-year-old son in the most dangerous jungle that you could ever be in. I thought he took a 10-year-old with him here because he's crazy. So I was getting desperate because I didn't know when the Blood Moon was. I'd known that I'd gotten a word from Mystra that it was not a week, but soon after. So I assumed it was within the month. I didn't know where my son was, and so when Mystra showed up again, I asked to make a deal with him. Because I figured at this point he's a being that transcends physics and he can just be wherever he wants, right?
Yep.
And so I decide, okay, I don't know what I can give you, but I'm desperate and I have no way to figure out where my son is. So I know that you can do this. I know that you can just be wherever you want. So can you tell me if my son is safe, and in return I'll do something for you? And he's like, oh yeah, I can do that. And I ask him what he wants, and he's like, I'll take it in due time. That's sinister. Mm-hmm. As soon as it happened, I came back to the party, and I was just thinking, what did I just do? And it became relevant after we saw the snake woman, Saja Nembaza, the wise woman of Chult. I found out when the blood moon was, and we had just dealt with Dejova Sanga, which is the big, fancy world tree that connects to all trees in Chult, and it's the heart of Chult's inherent magic.
Okay.
So we dealt with the tree, and I cast, I think it was plant growth? It's the 8-hour druid spell that will enrich the land a mile out. I spent the full 8 hours casting it to try and heal this tree as it had been blighted. After we killed the big bug thing that was living in it. It was really gross. And as we have a lull in the campaign, right? The tree, as it's being healed, all these beautiful lights start showing. It's such an inherently magical place. There's Chewinga all around us, which are these really cute little people with like really curly, wiry hair and these little white masks. They're adorable. I love them. And it's peaceful. And we're all just kind of enjoying, like, hey, you know, we've got some scary things coming up, but this is a nice thing. We've done something great for this land. And then who do I see off in the distance? But Mystar. At this point, the party knows about him, and we've figured out that I'm the only one who can see him at this point. He's a real entity, but I'm the only one who can see him. And we've kind of been spitballing ideas out of game at this point, where we thought maybe he's your Aasimar guide, because, you know, you're fallen, that doesn't, and just because he's creepy doesn't necessarily mean he's bad. Maybe he's meant to guide you. I went to see him. And he's like, oh, thank you, I've taken my debt. He infected the fucking tree with the tainted plague. And at this point, I'm freaking out, like, why would you do this? And he's like, tell me, how do you spell my name? And I spelled it for him, like, you know, how you spell the word Mystar, M-I-S-T-E-R. And he's like, oh no, well, that's not how you do it. It's M-Y-S-T-A-R. He's the inverse Mystra.
Nice. Okay. I thought I kind of, like with how similar the names were, I was like, I wonder if like he is like you know the new Mystra, because I know that maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure if Mystra dies, like a new Mystra is born. But
Mystra in our world did technically die at one point, but what we believe happened is that instead of completely dying, she split into two. They're two halves of the same coin. Mystra is law, and Mystar is chaos.
Great. So you just have, like, the entity of chaos just following you around, touching stuff with his little blight hands, causing problems for you.
Yeah, the entity of magical chaos, which is even worse. So I'm losing my shit at this point, because Arrow has switched circles by this point. She went from a circle of spores to a circle of shepherd, and has decided to dedicate her life to protecting Chult because it's given her so much. She's found out so much about herself and gained so much confidence in her own abilities. Just in the last 2 months, she's been in Chult, and she loves this place. She's already, like, we met this big monastery of Arakakra that have offered her a place to live once all of this is over. So she's pissed. She's real freaking pissed, and she's just like, why would you do this? How dare you use me like this? And he's like, oh, well, Miss Alma, you chose this. You asked me for a favor. I was simply taking it. And she's like, no, you tricked me. You used me. And she's like, you haven't even given me an update on my son. And he's like, oh, your son never left home. He's safe. And I'm like, well, great, cool. I just led my crazy ex-husband to me now, thinking that my son was gonna be there. And it was a mess. And it ended with Arrow taking out a dagger, because he's mentioned at this point that she's an experiment, and he needs her alive because he's interested in its effects. She takes out a dagger and puts it towards her stomach, and she's like, well, your experiment is going to end if you do not answer my questions, because she's tired of this roundabout shit. And finally, she gets some answered. Some. Not a lot, but some. And so what we can gather is that he was fascinated by allowing his influence to touch an Aasimar, a being that's very rare in this world. And that's when our cleric, when I got back after moonbeaming the shit out of him because I was broken, I had basically thought I had doomed the entirety of Chult. Our cleric used a spell on me that my DM made called Detect Taint. And it had a very faint glow, which means I'm infected. And he's the only thing keeping it in check.
Oh god, okay. Okay, so you can't... He's untouchable by you.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I don't know how to handle him, is the biggest thing. I don't know if he's good or bad. I just know he's chaotic. I don't know what he wants. I just know that I don't really have much of a dog in this fight here. And he showed up the last time during the blood moon. Because he's the one who told me that the little tiefling boy that looked like my son was not actually my son. He was a doppelganger. I found out that he's also been meddling with Arrow's husband. He actually told Arrow's husband to go touch a field of taint, and now he has taint legions on his hand that are staying put, but they're not looking great. Since then, Arrow has sort of reconciled with her husband. It's a difficult situation, but she basically, the only thing she wanted was to be able to pull her family out of this cult, and she didn't think her husband would listen to her. But he was kind of forced to when we, killed all his forces during the blood moon, and a Nikoloth showed up and tried to drag me into the Nine Hells. So there's a lot more to it. I'm actually, as we're recording this, I have a session today in which I'm I'm using the dream spell to speak with my husband, and check in on how his progress through Chult is, because we've sent him to go back up to Port Nizaru and wait for me.
The husband, not maybe I've missed something, but doesn't seem like the sharpest tool in the shed, since someone's been like, hey, see that stuff of poison? Go touch it. And he's like, yeah, okay, that sounds like a good idea. I'll go touch that thing.
Here's the clarification here. The cult of Bane, the Church of Bane, believes that Taint is Bane's influence cleansing the world. They don't know. Nobody knows what creates Taint. Okay. I just made a fucking discovery figuring out it was Mystar. Nobody knows what it is. They just know it's a plague that's fucking around with the world. And this cult, because they believe so strongly in Bane, and because it's such a prevalent problem in Sorrow, they believe that it's Bane cleansing filth.
Okay. The other thing here is, and I don't want to theory craft too hard about this whole thing, but had you ever had that identified taint cast on you before?
I think once before, and it was either clean or a super, super faint glow that we chalked up to the fact that Arrow was from Chult, or from Sorrow.
Do you think that maybe, just maybe, because you said you're a Circle of Spore druid, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, we're almost positive that was connected to it.
Yeah, that he's given you that Circle of Spore power, and that's just with you now. Like, that's just your happy surprise present for being a Circle of Spores druid.
It's funny you say that, because after we went through and we got the wise woman's words, and my specific question was to clarify when the blood moon was, because that was my most pressing issue, is that I knew it was soon, but I needed to know when so we could prepare. After we had the wise woman, we all were given blessings, right? Mine is called Corrupt the Weave.
Okay.
It allows me to cast Counterspell once a day, and it allows me to basically reroll to force a reroll on a check, right? So it's flavored as me manipulating the weave in order to in order to change the outcome. But the first time I used it, I was standing in front of a flower, and it turned the same shade of purple as Taint.
I am liking this DM so far. Seems like he's really done a number on you. So yeah, good
Oh,
job.
Ben's fucking fantastic. This has been a year of paranoia, and it's been great.
Oh, this is the DM you talked about in the other video that you were like, if you two get together, my life will be hell.
Yep.
So,
He's the one that was like, you guys both make my life hell.
I'm gonna need you to just tell me his Twitter handle so I can send him a message.
I don't think he has a Twitter.
Oh no, how are we gonna compare notes?
You don't? Because now he's tormenting me in 2 games and I don't need that in my life. So, yeah, that was the last encounter with Mystar. And unfortunately, it's an unresolved story so far. But like I said, tonight I'm having an encounter with husband, and I might be getting more from Mystar, because I don't know if he can show up in dreams too. I just know that he's also been fucking around with Kazar's life. Because he basically told Kazar, I can help you find your wife, but you need to do this one thing. So I don't know what he's doing. But, I totally neglected this. I'm so sorry. We got a fucking weird omen prophecy thing from the Mystra priest in her temple when I finally had enough money to get a divination cast. And the first one he gave me was completely useless, but then he got possessed by something, I guess. And he gave me the prophecy, beware of the man in the jacket of purple, the one who deals schemes and spreads chaos. Born of a murder, one of a half, the weave is shattered. Beware of Mystar. And I didn't heed that.
No, you didn't. Why did you not heed that? That is something to be heeded.
Oh, okay, because honestly, I'm gonna be honest, that priest had been shoving a donation box in my face every time I went to talk to him, so I didn't take him very seriously.
So this is entirely your fault.
Yep.
Oh.
And it's entirely Arrow's fault.
Tell me why.
It's fine. I'm sure it's fine. My DM, like, every now and then will be like, I can't believe you asked Mystar to watch your child. And I'm like, listen, I was desperate. I was scared. I thought that he was wandering through this terrible jungle with his crazy dad, alright? I didn't know what was going on. I've been, like, going nuts for the last 5 years.
You just need to hope that Mystar hasn't turned your kid into his protege.
Well, here's the thing. I've consistently had nightmares about Mystar taking my son, but we're not sure if those are actual nightmares or if it's because we're close to Dendar the Night Serpent and she eats nightmares.
I kind of feel like they could be prophetic dreams. Ben, if you're listening, prophetic dreams. Do it.
Ben, please, no. Please. I don't think anything to do this to me.
Alright.
That's the story of a very creepy but very well-loved NPC.
He sounds awesome. I might have to borrow him. Nia needs a new friend.
No, because Nia won't have the fucking... Nia will, like, listen to everything he says. No, God, no.
Yeah,
Nia won't quite...
Nia's opening move will be to, like, give the guy a hug. That'll end well.
He doesn't like to touch people, though, so that would be interesting.
Well, that means that at least the taint's not spreading too much, because he could just high-five a bunch of, like, people on the street, and that's that.
It's like he has like a weird aversion to touching, and I'm not sure if that's because he knows he spreads it or not. Because the thing about it also is that when Taint touches something, it spreads on its own. It multiplies. It's gross.
Sounds like you guys have your work cut out for you to stop that. I feel like that's gonna be like one of the major story threads for your campaign to like figure that out, stop it spread.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh God. Mystar he's an NPC that's one of the reasons I fucking love my DM Ben's DMing style, because all of his NPCs are already memorable, but he puts so much. This is the character that the DM from the previous story destroyed during his game. Like my warlock that was nerfed had her patron cut off and had her familiar taken away from her. He took this broken shambles of a character and gave her a fantastic arc. And I could not be more grateful for like all of the care he's put into her and put into her story.
I really hope that you will give us an update on Mystar and the story of this druid in another video on your channel soon.
Mm-hmm.
I want to
there
see
definitely
how this ends.
Oh, there definitely will be. The campaign, I believe, is ending in the next few months. So there definitely will be, hopefully, some resolution. Or at least I'll be able to tell you if Mystar killed her or not.
That's good. It means by the time this video actually goes up, hopefully we'll have a resolution somewhere nearby.
Yeah.
Alright. Thank you all for watching. We hope to see you on the Roll for Damage Twitch channel on Fridays at 8:30 PM Eastern Standard Time, where Wystle plays as Nee in the game IDM called The Scales Above. Till next time.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.